Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Man, I am just fresh out of a week-long event in Dallas. Like, I literally spent 5 days in Dallas with, man, not only students in my program, but a lot of people who are experts in a lot of different industries. And man, it was really eye-opening. And so I'm going to actually share some of the stuff that we went over. Um, I mean, there were ad agencies there that are spending like $1 million a week in ads. There were people who are using AI for all kinds of incredible things in order to increase ad creatives. And so, as I'm going through the ecosystem stuff today, I'm going to share some of the stuff that I learned, even as I was giving this presentation, because a lot of people came up to me afterwards and were like, oh my God, I've never seen ads laid out that way. And they were like, hey, you could do this or you could do that. And so, I'm going to start to just kind of like tweak as we're going because I've just learned a lot of really cool stuff that will make this ecosystem work even better. Okay. So if you are new here, welcome. I am going to go through the ecosystem as a whole, why it works and why it works no matter which industry. I'm also going to show you guys some different examples from everything from how I built this for a laundromat, how I built this for a salon owner, real estate agent. So I'm going to actually show you guys different examples, not only for my own business, but for other businesses too, because I think people have the misconception that, oh, this is a digital marketing thing. How does this work for brick and mortar? As a matter of fact, it works great for brick and mortar. Most of the students that I have inside my Lean on Laurel program are actually brick and mortar businesses because it just works so incredibly well. So the first thing that I want to talk about, right? Everyone got their coffee today. We're going to have some great conversations. We're going to go over the ecosystem and hopefully get you guys one step closer to being able to understand the damn thing, right? Because it is actually a lot easier than what I think a lot of people make it out to be. Because at the end of the day, we are just putting content in front of people and then retargeting them. If you want to think of it in the simplest way possible, we're literally showing people content and then retargeting them with more content. That's the easiest way to put it, right? Now, for those of you guys who don't know Onyx Singal, Molly Mahoney, and Eddie Malouf, we own a mastermind called Board of Experts. And so Onyx, whenever he first got on stage to teach the expert model, by the way, if you haven't seen that, let me know. I'll hook you up with the replay. Onyx and I did a presentation of the expert model that he's helping me build here inside the $7 program. But he actually opened up his talk by saying that there's so many people who believe that conversions are down, right? Because of this trust recession. And once you actually look at the data, conversions aren't down. Okay. People aren't buying less. The issue is that it's taking people longer to buy, right? And so if you're running a funnel and you're only nurturing people for those first 7 to 30 days, it's going to seem like conversions are down because here's the deal. The buying cycle has increased to 62 to 67 days, right? And so if you're not taking into account that it's going to take you 62 to 67 days to make money when you're running a funnel, it's going to seem like your funnel has stopped working. Does that make sense? So for instance, if you are running a low ticket offer, right? Let's say you're running a free plus shipping offer for a book. On average, people are paying $60 to $70 to sell a free plus shipping offer. So you're upside down a little bit, right? And people are like, well, Laurel, that's cool. I know I'm going to make my money on the back end. That's great if you can hold off on making your money back for 60 to 70 days. So a lot of times when people are running these low ticket offers, they're actually going upside down before their funnel has enough time to convert within that 62 to 67-day period. Okay. So that's why when someone comes to me inside the $7 program and they're like, well, Laurel, I spent all of this money inside this high ticket program and they helped me build this low ticket funnel. That is why I always ask them the question, can you take $5,000 to $10,000, put it in a knapsack and set it on fire and not see it again for 2 months? Most people are like, well, no. And I'm like, well, a low ticket funnel is probably not the thing that you want to do. And so that's why if you look at my ecosystem, I have it set up in 3 different phases based upon what your actual traffic looks like. Okay. So if we take a look at my ecosystem right here, right? A lot of people have the misconception that my ecosystem replaces a funnel. My ecosystem doesn't replace a funnel. It is built around a funnel. Okay. Now, if you're a local brick and mortar business, this would be an offer, right? So like if you are a car wash, we're going to build the entire ads ecosystem around your offer for, I don't know, like maybe a $60 a month, package to wash your car as much as you want, right? Car washes now have memberships, which I think is freaking brilliant, right? If you are a restaurant, your funnel would be, what are you doing to get people into that restaurant? Okay. So a funnel is literally just a sales process. And so what we want to do here is we want to build a system of content to plug every possible hole of that sales process. Does that make sense? Is everyone on the same page here, right? Because some people are running funnels, some people are just running offers, and some of you guys are just trying to get conversations, right? Like if you're trying to validate your offer, you might be running a messenger campaign right there to get hand raises for people to get your free thing so that you can get more conversations. Does that make sense? That's your funnel. So in phase 1, you might be running a conversion multiplier, a Reels video to get hand raises for your free thing. Some of you guys might be trying to validate your offer by just running a straight up power offer straight to an application. Or some of you guys might be running a lead gen campaign for a local service-based business, right? For solar, for insurance. It doesn't matter, but that's what the funnel is. The funnel is just essentially a sales process, okay? So all we're doing is we're building this ads ecosystem around that funnel. Okay. So we're going to talk about all of the different parts of the ecosystem and how it works. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the funnel section of this is your offer, right? So if we take a look at the sideways funnel, right? This is one of my favorite concepts, right? And my mentor always says that a funnel doesn't work up and down like the bro marketers say it does, right? If I want to change the oil in my car and I use a funnel, I pour the oil into the funnel, it goes straight into my car, right? Why does it do that? Because of gravity, right? Now, if we physically have a huge ass funnel, right? And we pour humans into it because of gravity, humans are going to fall through the funnel as well, right? But here's the thing, right? A sales funnel isn't pulled by gravity, right? A sales funnel, if you put people into a sales funnel, what do? They get scared. They get overwhelmed. They start saying, I've already tried this before, right? They get overwhelmed and then they just don't go through. And so what me and Nick like to teach people is that people move sideways. They don't actually fall through anything. And so what we need to do is we need to actually create the gravitational pull. And so instead of looking at my ecosystem as a sales funnel, like one big sales funnel, I like to look at it as a conveyor belt instead, because we need to create the pool that's going to get people from not ready to buy to ready to buy. Does this make sense? Let me know in the chat. Yes, or is everyone on the same page right now? Everyone needs a little more cup of coffee, right? Okay, cool. So I like to call it a conveyor belt, right? Because a sideways funnel just kind of looks weird, right? And so, funny story, as I was building out this slide deck, by the way, this is what I actually presented in front of, over 250 people at the Expert Summit. I was super excited because those of you guys who are in the $7 program know I am not a fancy slide presentation person, right? Like usually I would have my iPad out, my whiteboard, I would be scribbling away, right? Well, I am not the fancy slide presentation person. And I actually left this slide in here during my presentation to prove this point. There's a lot of people who will try to convince you that in order to run ads, make videos, that everything needs to be freaking perfect. Okay. Now, what ended up happening was I took all of the slides from my book, right? I drew out all of these diagrams and stuff in my latest book with my mentor, Nick Peterson, R3 ROAS. And I was like, but you know what? I want a fancy black presentation. And so I told ChatGPT to reverse my white and black image. Does anyone notice what happened with this image? It literally rewrote my words and misspelt it into rubbish, right? And so it's supposed to say on the left-hand side, not ready to buy. And on the right-hand side, it's supposed to say ready to buy. And so that's what it is, right? Some people, yeah, Jillian says she didn't even notice. Everyone at the presentation was like, "Oh my God, thank you for saying this." Like, because I gave people permission to do something imperfect. And by the way, most of your audience will appreciate the fact that you're not perfect. And so today, this is what we're actually going to work through. Yeah, it actually says re-Roy to boy. It's funny. Everyone after my presentation kept coming up to me and saying re-Roy to boy. It just became like a little fun thing. So that's what I'm gonna show you guys how to build and how this actually will make you more money in the long term. Okay. So in the very beginning, right? For those of you guys who are new to me, I think I would be missing, you guys would be missing out if you guys didn't understand the process that it took for me to get here, right? For those of you guys who don't know, I came from television. And I have a television background. And so if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would be sitting here running all of these programs, I would have been like, you're crazy. I would think that I'd be working at LA ABC 7. That was my dream. And lo and behold, someone told me, I'll cut the story short, that I need to sell my Facebook ad services to business owners. I didn't believe him. I was like, that you're just a scammer, whatever. And one day when my wife was at work, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to test that theory. And I'm going to test it the best way that I know how, and that's making content, right? Because almost 20 years of working in television, I've gotten really good at making content, throwing them in the Facebook Ads Manager and launching television shows. And so I started by going live on Facebook. And then I noticed that people needed a resource in order to get through the material. So I started making these Google cheat sheets to go with my live videos. And then people would comment for them. And then I would pull them onto a free Zoom call. I would not make them an offer. And what do you think happened? Every single day I went live. I gave value. I gave away a cheat sheet. I had messenger conversations. I said, hey, do you want me to help you launch those tomorrow on a Zoom call? Yeah, Jillian nailed it. People started asking how they could work with me. Now, keep in mind, this is while I still have a 9 to 5 job, right? Well, it was a 7 to 2 job, but same thing, right? And so what you're starting to see here is me putting together the very first version of my ecosystem. Because at this moment in time, I didn't know what a webinar was. I didn't know what a sales funnel was. All I knew was how to make a great video. And so all I was doing was teaching people how to create these video ads and launch them for $5 because that's what I was doing for CBS. We were launching all of these different news programs in different television markets, and I would go in all of these big cities like Dallas and Seattle and San Antonio, and I would literally run these $5 video ads promoting the news program for that night in that specific market. So that's the only skill I had at this moment in time. But then what started to happen was people were like, "Hey, Laurel, will this work for a webinar funnel?" I was like, "I don't know. What the fuck is a webinar funnel?" Right? And so I learned what a webinar funnel was, and things actually came full circle for me in Dallas this past week because one, I started my television career at CBS 11 in Dallas, but also, do you guys know the very first person that I learned webinars from? Onyx Singal. And so a lot of things came full circle last week for me in Dallas, which is very exciting, right? And so right now, all I know is how to go live, have conversations with people, hop on Zoom, and I realized, okay, I don't even have to have a quote offer. If I can position myself, people are just going to ask how they can work with me. And that's the way that I prefer to sell. How many of you guys get nervous when it comes time to make the pitch? What if I told you you never actually have to make the pitch? People will just send, it happens all the time. People send me messages, "Hey, Laurel, I'm ready to buy Lean on Laurel. Send me the link." I hardly ever have to pitch Lean on Laurel. Cool. So that was the first sales funnel, right? Remember, sales funnel doesn't necessarily have to be the physical click funnels thing that everyone makes it out to be. A sales funnel is simply just a process, okay? So what is next? Okay, so Google recently released a lot of data, okay? They literally have billions and billions of data points, right? And after studying these data points, they've discovered that it takes 7 hours of people engaging with your content. Now, this could be a podcast, this could be a book, this could be video content. Video content just happens to be my favorite because of the way, and we'll talk about why I prefer video content, but podcasts, blog posts, books, I'll show you guys where those actually fit into my ecosystem. But right now, I just need you guys to understand that it takes 7 hours before people make a decision to buy. And yes, we're even talking about a low ticket product. We're not just talking high ticket. We're not just talking about restaurants. We're not just talking about one specific industry. On average, people are engaging with brands for up to 7 hours before making that decision. That is why if you're in a local market and you own a restaurant, the restaurant that's on TikTok is going to get the customers. That is why the real estate agent that's doing YouTube videos are going to get the clients. That is why the digital marketers that are doing all of the digital content are going to get the clients because of this rule that Google came out with. So 7 hours of consuming content, 11 different touch points. So this means that someone might see an ad from me, click on it, and then they start seeing me on YouTube. They might find their way to my podcast. They might find their way to my book. They need 11 touch points across 4 platforms, right? Everyone always says that you need to get really good on one platform before going to the others. I don't think that's necessarily true anymore because we have so many great tools to where you can literally be omnipresent, right? I use a tool called Metricool. I actually am about to switch to something that is called Syllabi, and because my good friend Austin Armstrong created that software, and I'm gonna have him come in and demo it at some point. It's really freaking cool, but it's just really easy now to be omnipresent. And so there's no excuse for anyone to not be omnipresent. Even if you are fully present, like I am fully present the most on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Like if you comment on my YouTube channel, I will literally be there in the comments. I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on Instagram and then Facebook, right? So if you send me a DM on Instagram, I am more likely to answer it that same day because I am on Instagram more than I am on Facebook. Now, obviously, I'm still on Facebook. That's where a large percentage of my audience is, but we don't necessarily, I think people have the misconception that omnipresence means that you're physically there. I'm not on social media most of the time, honestly. Like I am on YouTube and I might hop on Instagram for like 10 minutes scrolling. But other than that, so next concept that I need you guys to understand is the 2% versus the 97%, right? So if we go back to this right here, right? The funnel. Funnels are built to capture the 2 to 3% of people who are ready to buy right now. That is why if you're running ads to a funnel, your ad costs keep creeping up and up and up, right? Because who is everyone else targeting to? The 2 to 3% of people ready to buy, right? That's where your conversion campaign is. That's why it is the most expensive, right? So if we go down here, as I was devising my ecosystem, I started to learn that, man, there are a lot of marketers who love targeting with conversion campaigns. And I'm like, but Facebook has all of these other different types of campaigns. And so I thought, well, what if we can get people to consume content like we do at the TV station, right? Because if we can get people to consume content, what do we know about people who consume content? They become loyal, right? You guys ever watch the show Selling Sunset? I love that show. I get sucked into all of those real estate shows, $1 million listing, all of that, right? Do you actually think that the women on Selling Sunset are the best real estate agents in the country? Probably not, but they get a huge percentage of the real estate market. Why? Because people are consuming the content of the television show. And so they just automatically trust them, right? And so you don't necessarily have to be the best at what you do. You just got to win when it comes to creating content and getting people into your world and being able to nurture them. Okay. So as I was doing video content every single day when I first started, I quickly realized that I was getting clients who my competitors weren't. Even though my competitors, we all were on the same playing field. We all started at the same time. But what I was doing was wildly different because a lot of the people who started at the same time that I did, they decided to build a sales funnel. So they were running ads to a webinar funnel, VSL funnel, low ticket offer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do something slightly different. I just want people to keep consuming my content. And so if I can create a low budget way to get my content in front of more people, I'm pretty sure in my gut that's going to be a win, right? Because we've been doing this in television for years. Radio's been doing it for years, right? We get people to consume content. We necessarily can't see, like when I worked in television, I never had a car dealership like the manager storm into my edit bay and be like, Laurel, I demand to know which commercial sold that car. No, right? But car commercials work, right? We know billboards work. We know advertisement in magazines work, right? So why is everyone looking at Facebook advertising in a different way? Well, it's because Facebook came up with these tools for tracking, right? But they're not tracking the entire picture, right? You see, the reason that I was standing on the stage just last week at Expert Summit in front of 250 people plus, it was because Onyx saw one of my ads. The Facebook Ads Manager is not going to give me the ROI for me standing on that Expert Summit stage. Does that make sense? And so I don't look at the advertising platform the same way that a lot of internet marketers look at it as dollar in, dollar out, because I understand the principle of advertising. So if we take a look at this circle, right, the entire circle represents everyone who could be your ideal client. There's going to be that 2 to 3% of people who are ready to buy, but there's going to be 97 to 98% of people who are still your ideal clients, but not ready to buy. And so that is what we're going to start with, right? Because there's two ways that we can get people onto the conveyor belt, okay? We can get them to engage with a funnel, right? We can get them to go to our website. We can get them to opt into an email with their email address to watch our webinar. We can get them to fill out a Facebook lead form. We can get them to have a messenger conversation. Those are all physical leads. We can see exactly who those people are, right? What we're going to do is we're going to build an invisible list of people who we can't physically see who they are, but we can retarget them based upon how much they are engaging with our content. So you see, my ecosystem is not going to replace the physical list building. It is going to work with it, okay? So the physical list, those are going to represent the people that we're trying to capture, 2 to 3% of people who are ready to buy right now or do business with us right now. But we're also going to build an invisible list of people who are our ideal clients, but they're just not ready to buy. So there's 2 ways that we're going to get people onto the conveyor belt. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. Or is everyone still with me? Because I want to make sure everyone is understanding what we're going to do here. Okay, cool. So here's the warning, right? Here's the warning. A lot of you guys are going to get super freaking excited about this strategy. You're going to run it for about 7 days, and then you're going to come to me and say, Laurel, I've been running it for a week and nothing's working. Here is the thing that kills this strategy fast, but why it's also the biggest opportunity, especially going into 2025. Why? Because people are fucking lazy. People want the easy button, okay? But here's the little secret. You don't have to be the best. As a matter of fact, I'm not even the best at ads that's sitting in this Zoom room right now. I guarantee you there's one of you guys who are sitting in this Zoom room right now that are better at pushing the buttons in the ads manager than I am. But the one thing that I'm really great at is creating content and keeping it in front of people for an extremely long time. That's it, right? And so a lot of you guys are going to give up before your people reach the other side of that conveyor belt. But if you can give yourself enough time, because here's the deal. What do you think happens, right? Let me go back a little bit. If I go here, right, and we see the conveyor belt here at the bottom, when we put that first person on the conveyor belt, either from the invisible list or the physical list, what magic happens when that person gets all the way across the conveyor belt? What happens? Let me know in the chat. And there's kind of a hint on the screen, but I'm gonna see what you guys say. What happens when that first person that you put on the conveyor belt makes it all the way across? Raphael, you're close. They have trust and buy. They buy, but there's something bigger that you guys, it's right in front of your face, and Erica just nailed it. Only because Erica was at Expert Summit and saw me do this presentation. LOL. I love you, Erica. Erica nailed it. Others are to follow, so you have a line of buyers arriving. Look, it's right in front of your face. Once that first person hits the other side of the conveyor belt, there is a line of people who are ready to buy at any given time 24/7. How many of you guys want that? That is what I have. That is why I don't have to convince anyone to buy from me. That is why I don't have to convince people to buy Lean on Laurel. There's a wait list for Lean on Laurel. There's a wait list for Momentum. It's because I understand this very well. But the thing is, a lot of you guys are not giving it enough time for that conveyor belt to pull that person to the other side. I had a person in the $7 program ask in the Ask Laurel thread, you know, hey, I ran your Hot 7 sequence for like the last 5 days and I don't have a sale. I was like, well, no shit. Buying cycle 62, 67 days, right? And so that is why this conveyor belt strategy works incredibly well. And I will say this, and Erica can attest to this because she was there. When I presented this, everyone literally just, you could hear the breath of the sigh of relief in the room. They were like, "Oh, because what I'm about to say," everyone was like, "Oh my God, yes." Because if you are already running a direct response funnel, there's good news because, guys, you already have people halfway through the conveyor belt. If we implement the rest of the ecosystem, there's a quick win for you. As a matter of fact, most people who come to me and they already have people on the conveyor belt, meaning they've already been doing organic content, they've already been running ads to a funnel. Once we implement the ecosystem, we're talking 24 hours getting results. I had a student who, like, more like a colleague, he wasn't really a student because he didn't stay in the program long, because literally after the first day, he's like, "Oh shit, I just set this up and it's working." He's running 7 figures in ads on within 24 hours of the first day, because he was running 7 figures in ads every single month, 6 figures instantly. Day one, he's like, boom, got what I needed. That's how powerful this ecosystem is. A lot of you guys are just sitting there running ads to a funnel. What this ecosystem is going to do is it's actually going to catch, right, all of the leads that are falling through that funnel, right? So we're going to use, we just quick recap, right? We're getting people onto the conveyor belt through either a funnel campaign or power content, right? Which are the goodwill videos. We're going to get people to watch our content. That's how we get them onto the conveyor belt. Then we're going to create a series of content that's going to move them along the conveyor belt. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly what that is. But then here's the next part that you have to understand, right? People are going to get to the end of the conveyor belt and they're going to get stuck. There's going to be 2 reasons as to why people aren't ready to buy. 1, they don't believe that it works, or 2, they don't believe that it could work to them. Now, take notes of what I'm about to say, because if you guys can get your content to answer the question that I'm about to say, your content will win. You guys want to know what that one question is? Super important. If you can work this one question and answer it in every piece of content that you do, you will win, guaranteed. And that is, why will this time be different? Because I guarantee you guys, for all of the problems that you're trying to solve for your ideal clients, I guarantee you they tried to solve it, and they paid to try to solve it before. If you're a weight loss coach, I guarantee they've tried other diets. They've paid someone else something. If you're a digital marketer, I guarantee they've bought a Google Drive worth of courses. I am guilty of that. I am a $37 offeraholic. I buy everything. I guarantee that everyone who you are trying to get as a customer has already tried what you're selling in one way or another. And so we have to learn how to create content that answers the question, why will this time be different? Now, if we are trying to convince someone why this time will be different, probably content alone's not going to do it. It's probably going to require what? Pop quiz for all of my rockstar students. What is the fastest path to cash? Oh, I saw Tina. She just said it. Yep. Wendy, conversations are the fastest path to cash. And so the last 2 campaigns in my ecosystem are built to get conversations. One is built to get messenger conversations, and the other is built to get phone conversations. One, less friction, right? It's really easy to have a conversation in the DM. A little less easy to have it over the phone or on Zoom, right? There's more friction. But I wanted you guys to get the principles behind my ecosystem, right? Because if we take a look at the pieces that make up my ads ecosystem, it all starts with a goodwill video. We get them onto the conveyor belt. And then part 3 is we have conversation content. So those are the 3 parts of my ads ecosystem. So let's actually take a look at what those pieces actually look like. So let's actually start with the goodwill video content. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people who come up to me and say, Laurel, I've tried doing video content, but I'm just not having quality conversations with the people who are watching my videos. And so I asked them, I'm like, well, who's your ceiling client that you're trying to attract in your video? And they look at me like, what? What do you mean your ceiling client? I'm like, well, are you creating content for only your ideal clients and make sure that you're polarizing the rest? I'm one of these people that made that mistake in the very beginning. And I went to my mentor and I said, Nick, I said, I'm getting a whole bunch of people to apply for Lean on Laurel and they haven't even launched an ad. And he's like, well, I've been watching you for the last couple of days. Stop telling people you're going to help them launch the ads ecosystem. Tell them you're going to help them fix their current ads. And I was like, holy shit. It was just one word that made the difference. Stop telling people you're going to launch their ads. Tell them you're going to help them fix them. And so this is one of my favorite exercises that I do with my clients when they first become a client. I always have the conversation. Who's the floor client? This is a person who has the minimum requirements it takes to work with you versus the ceiling client is your top of the top of the top best type of person to work with you. So for me personally, my ceiling clients are, I already told you guys a while ago, if someone comes to me and they already are running a direct response funnel, my ecosystem is going to fucking rock for them. Like they are going to make a shit ton of money really quickly. So who do you think I make most of my content for? People who run direct response funnels, right? Because if I can get people who run direct response funnels, we will rock and roll to the end, right? But I also work with people who have just validated their offer and they're looking for a structure in order to keep selling more people into their product. People who don't have a validated offer, well, they're below my floor. All of my free content is going to help them get to that next level. So most of the content that I do within my ads ecosystem is going to be for my ceiling clients. And then, of course, if you do the content in between the ceiling and the floor, you're going to be able to go broader and broader and broader in your content. But you always want to make sure that you're repelling those people who are below the floor, because that is where those people are going to suck up the most of your time and they're never going to buy from you. So are we good? So that is what our Goodwill video content needs to do. It needs to solve problems for everyone from the floor all the way to the ceiling. So meaning you're going to have 15 to 25 problems that you're going to solve for those people. Okay. So what does this actually look like in theory? Okay. So I like to call these Goodwill videos power content. Now, what do we know about power content? And of course, inside the course, I go in depth into each of these types of content. Right now, we want to stay overview. I just want you guys to understand what this is. So power content, we're going to keep them actionable. They're 3 to 5 minute videos that solve very specific problems. Okay. We're going to keep it super actionable. And so the reason that I like to keep things actionable is because we only have a very short amount of time to grab their attention and prove our value. And so that's why I like to keep these power content videos 3 to 5 minutes, because it's very easy to show someone how to solve the problem. Okay. Here's the thing though, right? People consume content through 4 different lenses. Actionable content, how-to videos, that's just one way. People also consume content in a very analytical way, meaning they're very numbers driven. Anthropological, which is very behavior psychological driven, and aspirational through storytelling. But when you start to break down the numbers, you talk about human behavior or you tell stories, what happens with that content? You probably need a little bit more than 3 to 5 minutes. And so I like to use the analytical, anthropological, and aspirational angles for the conveyor belt, right? This is where I'm going to tell stories of success. This is where I'm going to break out the numbers. This is where I'm going to start to get people to understand why some people will get success with ads and others will not, from a psychologically mindset angle. Does that make sense? Everyone with me? So our top of funnel power content, that's 3 to 5 minutes long, we're going to keep that actionable. Then we're going to take those same content topics. I'm going to show you guys exactly what that looks like. And then we're going to break them down into analytical, anthropological, and aspirational type of content. Now, this doesn't just mean video. If you look at my slide here, we can do this through video, written form, and podcast. Okay. And then we can also start to add some of these DM ads to move people along the conveyor belt. Now, who here only has a $300 to $500 a month budget? If you only have a $300 to $500 a month budget, guess what? This is all you need to do. Power content right into the conveyor belt, because the conveyor belt is where we start retargeting, right? We're getting people on the conveyor belt. So the conveyor belt is where we start the retargeting. And this is how my students who are only running $300 to $500 a month, this is where they start to see results. So what does this actually look like? Okay, so let's take a look at this in real practice. If I have this one piece of power content and it's solving a very specific problem, notice I say webinar stopped working. This $5 ad revives dead webinar funnels. I am talking to my ceiling client, people who are already running direct response funnels. But here's the thing. That is a very specific problem. I'm not going to recreate the wheel. The conveyor belt content, I'm going to break that same video topic down, but I'm going to break it analytical this time. And I'm going to turn it into this $5 ad brought in over 200 calls that led to over 40 sales of a $6,000 offer. And I'm going to break down those numbers. I could break down those numbers in a podcast episode. I could break down the numbers in a long form written post, or I can get out my little whiteboard and break them down on the whiteboard. So now, instead of one piece of content that's actionable, I now have 4 pieces of content because I'm breaking them down analytically in 3 different ways. Does that make sense? But it doesn't stop there. We can take that same topic of their of the $5 ad that revives a dead webinar funnel, and I can run it through the anthropological lens. And so I can turn that into why one $5 ad sparked a buying frenzy and what it says about human behavior. And I could do that anthropological piece of content through a blog post, a podcast episode, or a video. Are you guys starting to understand how we're not recreating the wheel for any of this stuff? And so if you're wondering, where does my book fit in? Where does my blog post fit in? Where does my podcast fit in? Right? So Sarah just asked a really great question. Do you put all of these as ads or just organic? I want you guys to stop asking that question, and here's why. And it's such a good one, Sarah. I don't look at content as either organic or paid ads, because here's the deal. Organic ads are just free advertising. Paid ads are just organic content with money on it. This is all content, which is all ads. So that's why paid versus organic is not even in my vocabulary anymore. Every single piece of content I do, I need to look at it as an ad, a free ad or a paid ad. So all of this gets treated exactly the same, and all of it gets put in the ads manager. That makes sense to everyone? Everyone give me a thumbs up in the chat if that answer made sense. I want you guys to stop thinking paid ads versus organic. Like, we need to stop looking at it like that, because at the end of the day, it's all ads. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Because like, here's the deal. I want all of this to be ran hands off. Right? All of this goes into the ads manager. If you follow the program, Bevan just said when you say all of this goes into, that's where I get confused. All of these get turned into ads. If you're overspending, you're likely overspending in your funnel campaign, because all of these are just $5 ads, $2 boost, and that's pretty, the entire ecosystem are just $5 and $2 ads. So does that make sense? So this is the conveyor belt, right? We're just taking that first topic and then we're breaking it down, right? Oops. So now that we've gotten people on the conveyor belt, right? Now, there's 2 reasons that people aren't moving forward, right? Everyone talks about objections, right? Time, money, sacrifice, effort. Well, guess what we're going to do, guys, next? We're going to take that same content about $5 ads, reviving a webinar, and we're going to run it through a time lens. And so we're going to talk about how you don't have to spend a lot of time getting more people to your webinar. You don't have to spend a lot more money getting people to your webinar. You don't have to sacrifice time with your family to improve your webinar numbers. And all you need to know is a simple $5 5-minute setup, and bada bing, bada boom. So now, instead of one piece of content, we've just multiplied it into 20 because we've added now the objection lenses. That is the middle of funnel content that's going to be at the end. It's formally known as the Hot 7, right? So as of this point moving forward, we have no more Hot 7. Bye-bye, Hot 7. Why? Because I'm learning that as more and more of my clients are implementing this strategy, that Hot 7 is turning into the Hot 10 and the Hot 20 and the Hot 30. By the way, I have like a Hot 40. And so there's no more Hot 7 because it's just, we need more than 7 pieces of content, right? Especially if we want to get in that 7 hours of consuming content. So now the Hot 7, I am going to reteach it as the green light sequence because it just makes more sense to do that. Now, it's not only about objections. It's also about getting people to adopt our mechanism. And so there's 5 different adoption decisions that people have to go through in order to adopt what we're teaching them, right? Like right now, it is my job to tell you guys that my ads ecosystem isn't complex and it's compatible with what you're doing. It's probably better than what you're doing. That's relative advantage. How is this better than what you're currently doing? Because if you're currently just sending ads to a webinar, this will ramp up the ROAS. Trialability. Can I try it before I actually have to buy it? And observability. Can I see how this works for someone else before I try it for myself? And so now, instead of having 4 objections, we also have 5 adoption decisions, which is 9 different pieces of content. So now you can see why the Hot 7 is going bye-bye, because already we have 9 pieces of content from just one angle. So that's what the ecosystem content's going to look like. So that is why I tell you guys that content Bible exercise that I make you guys do in the very beginning, where you're breaking out your 15 to 25 pieces of content. That's why we don't have to keep recreating. That's why I never run out of content, because let me ask you guys the question. As we get more clients, as we talk to more people, what do we also get? More stories, more numbers, more human behavior elements, right? We see how more people behave. And so this is how we literally never run out of content. So Travis just asked the question, how do we ensure they see all of this content? We retarget them. That's simple. We just retarget them, right? Because if we look at the ads ecosystem, that's what we're doing. We're putting out that gateway video. We're sending people to that funnel. Once they get on that conveyor belt, they are moving along. And as you go through the $7 program, I show you how do we set up those Goodwill video ads, right? How do we set up the conveyor belt? You can set up the conveyor belt in 2 ways. You can simply just hit the boost button, or you could actually set it up as a sequence inside Ads Manager. I show you guys how to do that both ways. I show you guys how to set up your fast funnel, which is your DM funnel. I show you guys how to set up the former Hot 7, which is now going to be known as the green light sequence moving forward. I show you guys all of that. I also help you guys break down each of those campaigns. If you guys haven't gotten the ROAS Accelerator Playbook, this is all laid out. As a matter of fact, if you're watching the replay right now inside the program, it's going to be linked below this video. But in this program, I literally have everything that you guys need in order to execute each of these steps one step at a time. As a matter of fact, if you go in phase 1, I show you guys how to set all of this up in a day by day play. And then we go into phase 2, where we introduce some type of offer. And then in phase 3, we introduce a funnel. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. What do you think happens if you just stay in phase 1? you could still make a shit ton of money. Most of my clients who are solopreneurs, they never even graduate because they're just using the conveyor belt, making 20, 25, 30,000 a month just with the conveyor belt. Because they're like, well, why would I start a funnel? Unless you like have a team and everything and you really want to do email marketing and all of that fun stuff. A lot of you guys, the conveyor belt, like the phase 1 would be good enough. Right? Yeah, Jillian says if social media managers only knew this, absolutely. Like I've been teaching a lot of social media managers to add this to their arsenal of tools because it will skyrocket what they do for their clients. Yeah, Kylie says, proof. I saw Laurel's ad when I was watching YouTube yesterday. I'm everywhere. Yep. So Selena says, can an esthetician do something like this? Absolutely. This works in every niche, guys. It does not matter. Here, you guys want proof? I'll show you guys proof of that, right? So let me actually get out. So as you guys might not know, I'm about to release my 3rd book. This one is called Kiss My ROAS. And it talks about everything that we just talked about. But I added a little bonus section in the back, and it is how the ecosystem looks in various industries. Check this out, guys. I built the entire ecosystem. I grabbed all of my clients over the last several years, and I was like, you know what? I am going to show people what this actually looks like in various niches. So if you're a fitness or a local gym, these are all of the different content topics that you could do if you were a local gym. I built this for a laundromat last time I was in Phoenix, and this is the entire strategy from everything: power content videos, fast funnel topics, boosted posts, hot 7, now known as the green light sequence, right? All of these, like for the laundromat, right? I'm working on pulling my insurance agency. By the way, I own an insurance agency on TSFA side, and we literally implemented this for our whole life clients. We've implemented this for our insurance, our burial insurance. We're running this ecosystem to sell burial insurance. Like, how freaking boring is that? Chiropractors. In my new book, I talk about how this works extremely well for chiropractors. I built it for an Airbnb host right here. Salon owner. Guys, it does not matter whether you own a restaurant, real estate agent. Here's what the ecosystem looks like. Every single piece of the content works in every single industry. It does not matter. Like, everyone needs to be building a physical list and an invisible list, right? Restaurants run television commercials. Why would they not run this? Right? Does this make sense? Who here? Let me know in the chat, because I know a lot of you guys have been with me for a while. What was the light bulb moment that you got? Every time my clients say that they go through my training, they get a new light bulb moment. What was the new light bulb moment today? Let me know. As a matter of fact, who wants to share? I'm going to let you guys unmute. And who wants to share? Because I need to grab a sip of coffee because I know this coffee is getting cold. But just so you guys know, in 5 minutes, I'm going to be switching over to the other Zoom with my Momentum members. Which, by the way, if you want extra time with me, go to adswithlaurel.com/momentum. I told Suzanne right before this call to open up 3 more spots in Momentum. So if 3 of you guys want to hop into Momentum and come jam with us, by the way, if you're not in Momentum, you don't have to be, right? The $7 program, you're still going to get your 2 Zoom coaching calls. You're still going to get your weekly Ask Laurel thread. But here's why you should hop into Momentum, right? Because I just talked about how I spent 5 days in Dallas, right? With the Board of Experts at the Board of Experts Summit. Here, it's adswithlaurel.com/momentum. So here's why you will want to be in Momentum, okay? So first of all, Anik is going to be helping me build out the expert model. He's going to help me market Kiss My ROAS and actually turn it into a liquidation funnel and all of that fun stuff, right? So I'm going to be letting all of my Momentum members watch that over the shoulder, right? The second reason, and this is the biggie. So as I was at Expert Summit, there were people like Austin Armstrong who built Syllabi. There are people that were telling me, hey, I think I could build these AI tools out for you. And I was like, hey, can I get my students to actually watch, and actually, can we like add some value? And so if you're in Lean on Laurel or Momentum, Over the next several weeks, I've got over 20 experts in AI, in low ticket offer funnels, in challenge funnels, in VSL funnels. We're all going to be jamming on Zoom, and people who are in momentum will get a chance to be there, ask questions, and they will get access to all of the replays. And so I'm adding even more calls to momentum over the next several days as I'm building stuff for my own business. I'm going to be doing more. And I was like, why the hell would I not invite my tribe to watch over the shoulder? And so if that's not a reason to buy over the next couple of weeks, I don't know what is. I will also be making the switch to a new platform because I'm not really loving Kartra very much. And so guess what? I'm also going to be rebuilding the $7 program and the Lean on Laurel program. And guess who I'm going to invite to watch? Everyone in Momentum and Lean on Laurel. So if you've been on the fence about joining Momentum, there's not going to be a better time to hop in there than right now. My students over there get extra calls. Like we're about to switch Zooms, and I'm going to actually help them implement the pieces of the ecosystem, whether it's writing their power content, writing their green light sequence, figuring out what their content needs to be. We're going to be doing that. Awesome. So let me go back. I'm seeing some of the, yeah. Light bulb, be patient. Let the ads run and do their job. Yes. It was so funny at the expert summit. Erica was there. Erica, what happened whenever I walked on stage and I was like, yeah, a lot of people are teaching you guys how to track data. I don't do that. And the whole room was like, what? I was like, I was like, I know you guys heard what I just said, but your brain is thinking through it in a little bit different way. I was like, numbers are important, but I was like, there is a such thing as frequency of exposure, and here's why I don't look at my ad metrics as much as a lot of these gurus do. And people were like, oh, that makes sense. But it's like, because half the time, what did I tell you guys? Data can sometimes cripple you, right? I have clients all the time that come to me, they've ran an ad for a day or two and they're turning it on, off, on, off, on, off, on. I'm like, it's never going to optimize doing that. And it's not taking into account, like most of the time, guys, people aren't buying from ads. Like most of my $7 sales still come from the DM because people see my ads and they want to make sure I'm a real person. So they send me a message. Honest, that's what's happening. Like a lot of people are not buying straight off of the ad. A lot of people are coming to me in the DM so that they can, and they want to have a real conversation with me. And I'm cool with that, right? Because there's a lot of people who've bought into things and they didn't get what was promised. So hopefully today's call made sense. We good? Everyone walking away having a complete understanding of the ecosystem. I want to make sure before I get off the Zoom call, everyone have a complete understanding so that now you can go through the content inside the program and get your power content up and running, get your fast funnel up and running. Awesome. Well, you guys have an amazing...
Laurel.
Huh?
I don't know if you can hear me. My voice is just now coming back.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Erica got sick at the event. I was like, oh my God, Lord. One day she was talking awesome. And the next day she was all sounded like a frog.
Exactly. My voice, well, it's better now, but you can still barely hear me. Anyway, I just wanted to tell everybody, I'm going to lean close to my microphone. So I think the most like eye-opening thing for everybody was definitely about when you talked about how little you track and that you didn't go back in and look at your ads manager. I mean, it was like you could hear a pen drop, because I think people like they introduce you as like, you know, an ads manager. So the first thing people think is all of the numbers and you know, the complications. And so when you get up there and you make it look so simple, they're like, oh my God, like I've been doing it all wrong, you know, that type of feeling. So I could tell a lot of people were like, oh, I've got to do this. Yeah, very accessible, Jillian said. Yeah, so everybody can do them. And I think what the other big thing that I noticed, you know, that people got excited about was literally how much you normalize how definitely it can work in every single industry. I think people think, you know, oh, people do this for everything, but that's not going to work for me, or how's that going to work for me? And just by giving those examples, and like you said in your new book that has those examples, I think that really helps a lot. But the people
How,
in that,
what would you say, Erica? Because I think this will help people. If someone's new to the ecosystem, right? Because you've been with me. Erica, by the way, has been in Lean on Laurel for the last 4 years. You guys would hate how much she pays for it because she's grandfathered in. But Erica, for someone who's been in my world for a really long time, what would you say to someone who's just starting out with my material? What would you say? What advice would you give them as they're going through it for the first or second time?
to forget everything they've ever learned and known, and to literally follow, like, the book is, I think, pretty clear. So follow, if you want to do the videos, but follow the book like step by step, or the videos step by step, and just keep doing exactly what it says. Because I think people, oh, look at the baby. Because I think people get excited, like you said, and after 5 days, they're like, it's not working. But you have to understand the whole concept of it, rather than just, page by page. Like, if you understand the whole concept of it, you have to understand that you're building something, and it's not just like, here it is, let's go. You're going to start winning. And maybe, like you said, for the people who have a bunch of stuff set up, you might be able to turn it on and it might be fire. But for anybody else that's just starting out, you have to actually build that out. But once it's built out, then it just sort of runs and runs and runs and runs, and it just keeps going. And you just need to build it, basically. So
Yeah.
stick with it and go like step by step, and stay the, you know,
And
don't second guess it.
Wendy just made it a very important thing. And that's why I run the Facebook group. I know we're going a little over here, but I think that this is important. And this is why I have the rules that I do inside the Facebook group. That's why I don't allow what if questions. You have to engage the field, because here's the deal. You will answer a lot of your own questions by simply just going and implementing one lesson at a time. And so my most successful students, this is the way that they consume the content, okay? For instance, they will go through the power content. They won't ask me, well, what if I'm this? They just try to write the script for their industry. They try to make it work. If they get stuck, they go to the Ask Laurel thread and they're like, hey, I'm trying to write this for a salon owner. This is how far I've gotten. Can you help? Cool. If I have that context, I could rewrite it for them in the Ask Laurel thread, and they're bada bing, bada boom on their way, right? But if you use the Ask Laurel thread to ask me hypothetical questions, it's going to be slower for you to get results. And so that's why I like for you guys, go through the content, try to do it as best you can. If you don't want to wait for the Ask Laurel thread, that's okay. Post it in the Facebook group. Guess what? Tina has been running my ad strategy for years. Erica has been running my ad. Sean has been running my ad strategy for years. Bevan. There's so many people that have been in my world for so long that if you say, hey, I went and did this power content video, I tried to write the script, but I can't quite see how it's fitting. Can someone help? You're going to get faster help if you showcase to everyone that you actually did the work. Sorry, my camera's going crazy. But does that make sense? Because like no one wants to answer what if questions, because no one fucking knows until you have the data. Like people could be giving you bad advice if you're not doing the stuff. And so that is why inside the Facebook group, I have a strict rule. There's no what if questions. There's no questions like who else here is blah, 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 blah. Like just do it and then post what you did and then have us fix it for you. That's the fastest way you're going to move through the material, hands down. Does that make sense? Awesome. Well, guys, I'm going to meet with Momentum members on the other Zoom, and I will see the rest of you guys inside the Facebook group. I love you all. Thank you so much for having coffee with me this morning. And Diana, welcome. I saw that you're new here, so we're happy to have you.